Morning, I'm Mike Greenberg in New York. This is Get Up on ESPN, and we will have all the regular features of a Football Friday coming up today. But we will begin by showing you, in case you didn't see it last night, what happened in the third quarter of the game between the Dolphins and the Bills, eventually won by Buffalo. But it's a roundup resulting in the third diagnosed concussion of Tua Tagovailoa's career, and it's not a pretty play. We'll show it to you right here, Cindy. It comes again in the third quarter on a fourth down play. You're going to see Tua scrambling up the middle, and rather than sliding, he is going to dive somewhat headlong into Bills safety Damar Hamlin, immediately going to the ground, does Tua, and goes into that fencing response with his arms in an unnatural position. Medical trainers would attend to him for several minutes as players kneeled around him. He was ultimately able to walk off the field and into the locker room under his own power, but was quickly ruled out for the remainder of the night with a concussion. There is no immediate timeline for his return. After the night was done, here's head coach Mike McDaniel.
I talked to him in the locker room. Obviously, I talked to him on the field, and then talked to him in the locker room before he was headed home. You know, he was in good spirits. The furthest thing from my mind is, what is the timeline? I want to know. We just need to evaluate and just worry about my my teammate and like the rest of the guys are.
You just don't want to see somebody continue to go through adversity like that and go through injuries. It's definitely tough, and I'm praying for him, man. That's my guy. So seeing that happen again, it was tough to watch, and I just hope that he's gonna be all right.
We just hope that everything moving forward can be as positive as possible, uplifting every single human being in this locker room, praying for safety and health for everybody on the field always, and obviously it's always tough to see your leader go down like that. So we'll all be praying and moving forward, having his family in our thoughts and prayers.
So Tua's history with concussions has been somewhat well documented. It began in college. He suffered one his final season at Alabama. In 2022, it became more concerning as he was diagnosed with a concussion in Week 4 against the Bengals, and then just weeks later, he suffered another against the Packers, which ultimately led to the end of his season. And watching this last night, the reaction was pretty strong from around the world of football. I'll show you some of it. Our Louis Riddick tweeted, part of the discussion is going to be about if he should play anymore ever again. That's the reality. That makes me feel sick, but it's part of the discussion now. Just want the man to be safe and healthy. Damn. Another of our teammates, Shannon Sharp, tweeted, really hope Tua is okay, but he's got to seriously think about shutting it down. I hate saying this. His concussions are getting worse and worse, and he's a young man with his entire life ahead of him. Another former NFL star, Des Bryant, added, that's it, NFL, go ahead and do the right thing. Tua has had entirely way too many concussions. He needs to retire for his longevity health concerns. So I bring it out here, and our team is together this morning as usual. Ryan Clark and Bart Scott, two former players with their perspective. Mike Tannenbaum, a general manager in two NFL teams with his perspective. And Dan Graziano, our insider. I'll start with you. What can you fill in here? What blanks have I not filled in so far this morning?
Well, you heard Mike McDaniel talk about how he was up and about and in good spirits, talking to his teammates after the game. Obviously, that's a very positive sign. What happens now is he'll go in today, he'll get evaluated by team medical personnel, and they'll make a plan. We all know about the concussion protocol in the NFL, how you have to clear very specific steps in a very specific order in order to be returned to the field. And the last step is you have to be cleared by an independent neurologist. And when he got his last concussion in 2022, in December of 2022, that was week 16. He missed the following two games and the playoff game. Wasn't really officially cleared to return to play until that spring. I think it was like that February or March. So they will almost certainly be extremely careful. Not that everyone isn't, but in this case, given his history, you would think that they'll make sure and maybe take extra time, more so than they need, if he is to return to play. But in terms of what everybody's tweeting and everything, that's going to be a decision that he ultimately makes. If a neurologist does clear him to return to the field, then that'll have to be a decision he and his family make together.
Okay, so that's the information as we have it, and as there is any more, certainly you will get it. I'd like to hear the thoughts of the players. You heard Louis and Des Bryant and Shannon Sharp. Ryan Clark, when you saw that happen last night, what went through your mind?
I think the first thing is just immediate concern. And then another part of it was, as silly as it may sound, was the hit wasn't that bad.
Yep.
which makes it even scarier, right? Because it's not some of those glancing blows or some of those hard impact hits that we are used and have been kind of normalized into saying, okay, this guy has a concussion. And so it lets you know that for Tua Tagovailoa, this is a very severe situation. Now let's talk about the reality of it. Tua Tagovailoa has worked to play this game his entire life. So now the Miami Dolphins, the NFL, you're going to have to step in and not do the right thing and tell someone who has worked for his dream that he shouldn't play anymore. But make sure that you go through the process in a way where he has the full information to make his own decision. Tua Tagovailoa's family is going to talk to him about what your life looks like after football. Can you be here for your children? Can you be here and coherent for your grandchildren? What will be your quality of life? But Bart knows this like I know this. I looked at those lists of concussions. I know a myriad and a multitude of players that have suffered more concussions than Tua Tagovailoa. And I know that all of those players wanted to get back on the field as soon as possible because it's what we do. There's a reason that fans are the way they are about football. It's because these men go out each and every week and do things that most people aren't willing to do. And when those things have a bad consequence, or when those things have a difficult ramification, or when adversity strikes, what makes those people special is that they don't blink. I don't believe that Tua Tagovailoa is going to blink. I don't want Tua Tagovailoa to blink. But as someone who loves this game, as someone who wants everybody to walk off the field as healthy as possible, I know that they truly have to dive in and give him the reality of how this may affect him going forward.
The most important word that I think we used in the open there, and I wanted to use it very specifically, is the word diagnosed, because these days we call them concussions. Back in the day, they used to call it having your bell rung, right? I mean, how many times does that happen to an NFL player over the course of a career that isn't diagnosed as a concussion? I'm not in any way suggesting that we have any knowledge of that involving Tua. My point is, I think there's a difference between how many diagnosed concussions a player has and how many times a player has taken a hit to the head.
I mean, technically, I've never had any, but we used to call it being dinged. And sitting here with a fellow hitter, you know, we've been in those holes and we've got up and been woos and dazed, and maybe we were able to finish the game. You know, the reality is Tua may be able to play. The question is, should he play, right? And because we talk about, that's the first thing I thought, man, like that was a glancing blow where he kind of ran into somebody and got caught. That wasn't even a blow where he's going to get taken to the ground or his head hit the ground. And, you know, we all know that when you get a concussion, it's so much easier to get another one. And, you know, this was the concern. I think this was why Miami was reluctant to give him the contract, right? Because we know that his play warranted an extension a lot earlier than he got it. But, you know, he's going to have to sit down with his family and ask himself, is it worth it, right? And that's only a decision that every player has to make on his own. And that's an intimate, personal choice that you have to make. You know, he's cashed in, but the reality in the football part of it is a lot of times when, you know, you get paid, and we all know what came out about Brian Flores and how Tua lost the love and how this new regime has brought a love and passion, renewed belief and joy when it comes to football. But you feel indebted, you know, to the organization, like you owe them something. And he has to realize that, listen, sometimes life isn't fair, and he owes himself and his family. And I encourage him to reach out to guys like Steve Young, Chris Borland, guys who retired because of concussions, and ask them what the quality of life is, because you don't know what's on the other side of that concussion when you're 40, when you're 50. And that's, you know, the information that we don't have. But now we have resources and people that we can ask about what life is like, and then he has to determine if it's worth it for him.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, though, too, Bart, like, let's be real, you know, let's bring the people inside the locker room. I'm talk about me. At 30, at 31, at 28, I actually didn't think a lot about what was on the other side. I thought about what was right in front of me.
Right.
And so many times we make this about money. Right? And don't get me wrong, like, we get to change generations of our last name, of our family, understood? But I played it because I loved it, right? And I played it the way I played it because I loved it, because I wanted you to know I love it. I wanted Mike Tannenbaum to know I love it. I wanted Dan to know when he wrote about it how much the game meant to me. And think about Tua Tagovailoa. He didn't have a play like that last year. We never walked in here and said to ourselves, he should have slid. We never walked in here and said to ourselves, Tua Tagovailoa can't take that hit, because he continued to protect himself. And he did get the money. And the part about being indebted is, hey, everybody's saying I don't create enough plays. Everybody's saying I don't go above the X's and O's. Well, I got $53 million. I'm going to show you what I could do. I'm going to show you who I am. When I went to Mike Tomlin, I begged to play in Denver. I put a team of doctors around, and my sentence started with, Coach, they say if I'm dying, they can save me. That was my thought. My thought is, if the reason I got so sick last time is because I didn't have these people here and because we weren't prepared. But now I'm prepared to not die. That's what Tua Tagovailoa was going to say. Tua Tagovailoa was going to say, if I'm cleared and you give me an opportunity to play, I want to play. Somebody's going to have to step in for him.
But when me and you played, we didn't know the long-term, CTE, the ALS that happened. We didn't know that, right? They hid the information. The NFL didn't give us the long-term data that they had for concussions and head trauma. He knows it. It's out there now. I think the first sign was that when we saw a tough guy in Ben Roethlisberger take himself out the game. Now, he can go and put the soft cap on and all of that stuff, but, and he can pass all the tests and they can say that he's cleared. But, at the end of the day, that doesn't mean that he can take a blow. You can't test if he can take a hit. That wasn't a big hit. What happens if he takes a big one? Could we see a player die on a football field?
We were talking this morning about there's the Guardian caps now, and that there are helmets that are actually even beyond that stage now. We don't know what helmet specifically. We've been looking into it this morning and not been able to determine yet exactly what helmet.